Welcome everyone to Hashtag General, where nothing happened this past week, and that's what we're gonna run with. The 2020 did rear its ugly head, and I don't know if you saw this yet, Chris, but Alex Trebek did pass today. So
yeah, I did see that. Very sad.
Which sucks. So,
but I will say that his fight for the last couple of years
Yes.
has been very inspiring to see.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a week where nothing happened, and then 2020 decided to rear its ugly head to be like, no, I'm not done yet. So
I think I tweeted yesterday. I was like, I think I was like, Lakers won a championship, Dodgers won a championship, Biden won. I was like, maybe 2020's turning around, and then today I put, nope. I take it all back.
Take it all back.
I was like, this sucks.
No, yeah. I might watch some Jeopardy today. But other than that, what's been going on, Chris? I know World's wrapped up, so you should be on the correct time zone now.
Yeah, I'm not exhausted, so that's good. But yeah, other than the extremely uneventful week that we've had.
Yeah.
Prepping for next gen, so my Xbox is on its way.
Nice.
So that's shipped.
We'll talk about that next.
I have a story related to this, but
is that a story that we want to go over now, or is this a story we should discuss when you have the Xbox in hand and we could talk about the?
No, it's a funny story.
Okay.
I can talk about it now. It's fine. So
let's go.
Pre-order. Trying to think. I think pre-order happened September 22nd, if I remember correctly, of when pre-orders went on sale.
I just remember it was a mess.
Yeah, so I got mine directly through Microsoft, so I was pretty happy about that because I wanted to get either Amazon or Microsoft because those are the two. Well, Microsoft obviously because they make them, so that's one thing, and then Amazon because both of them have really good track records of fulfilling pre-orders and like understanding how many they have or like just not canceling.
Yeah, you're not going to get caught in the oops cancel or
right.
Yeah.
Right. If I did it with like Best Buy's good about it too, but like if I did it with Walmart or Target,
right,
I would have been pretty upset. So I got with
companies who notably aren't all like tech isn't their thing. They sell them, but that's like not their big mover.
Right. So did that. I got the pre-order Microsoft. Very excited. Very cool. Good. In October, that card that I used to pre-order got caught up in like a fraud thing. Oh. I got charged for like 6 or 7 transactions with a like Lyft, Uber, rideshare app service, taxi service thing in the Netherlands.
Fun. How was Amsterdam?
Right. I was like, I've never been. Okay. And so I called, whatever, canceled the card. Great. Didn't think much of it. Then about 2 weeks ago,
oh god,
I got a message from Microsoft that was like, hey, we tried to charge your card and it didn't work. What hell? And I was like, oh, I forgot to change the cards. So I changed the card. Great. The order now lists paid with and the new card. Fantastic. Old card doesn't exist on my account. Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Then 2 days ago, I got a email that was like, hey, we tried to charge your card again. didn't work. You should change the card. And it listed the old card number. And I was like, how does this
Uh,
happen? I was like, how? So I called Microsoft. I was like, hey, the hell? I was on the phone for a half hour with the same dude. And he goes, he's like, well, did you change the card? I was like, yes. Cool. Did you remove the old card? Yes. Cool. What's your order number? Uh, I can't find your order. So we're
oh
going through this
God.
for a half hour, right? So then after like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, he goes, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. I can't see your order. This is confusing to me. Can I call you tomorrow or have a supervisor call you tomorrow?" I was like, "I guess so. Like what? I was hoping to get this done. Like
Yeah.
the console comes out in 2 days. Like or 3 days, whatever." I'm like, "Okay, I guess so." So he call or so whatever. I go to bed. I didn't think anything of it. Wake up the next day, no one calls me. I'm like, "Oh, this is concerning." So then uh, I call back, and I explained the thing, and the guy goes, "Oh, here's what's happening. There's like an error with the way that our pre-orders are charging, whatever." And I was like, he's like, "You'll get a charge like later, like either tomorrow or something." I was like, "Okay, great. Why was this not explained to me before?" I don't know, whatever. And then checked yesterday, uh, everything charged and it shipped, and I was like, "Cool, fantastic. This ordeal's done." But it was like a stressful couple days because
God, I know.
they're like, "Cool, if you don't fix this in the next 24 hours, it'll be
Like you're not
canceled."
gonna
And
get
I
your
was like,
console.
"Yeah," I was like, "What? What's going on?"
Well, you got your console. Everything is
I
right with
did.
the universe.
I didn't get it yet, but it's in the hands of FedEx, so we're good.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, most of my what I'm watching it up to, we're either talking about this week or it ties into another conversation that you've been like. I gave you the details for last night, but let's move on to tech and go over some
Oh,
of
I will
AIM.
say,
Mm,
everyone go watch Queen's Gambit because it's hype.
all right,
That
which
show's
one's
good.
that one?
It's a Netflix show about chess. It's like a female chess player. That's all you need to know.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't think I've seen a trailer for it, but I know Netflix has been saying you should watch this show.
It's really good.
All right, so Queen's Gambit, recommended by Chris.
Yeah.
Tech. So, well, let's just start off with the Ryzen 5000 has been released, and holy crap, don't buy Intel. I think that's kind of the byline, headline. Like,
Yeah.
it's if you look at benchmark results, like I was looking at the 5600 benchmark results, and it was beating regularly the 10th gen Intel like i7, i9, or competing with them. And so here's the 6 core competing with like the 8 and 10 core
Right.
processor from Intel, and it's like either beating them or like between the two of them, and it's just the AMD 6 core. It's bonkers. Like if
Yeah,
you
that's pretty
are
insane.
yeah, if you are a gaming like and are wanting the new processor, because there's still a very good argument to be made that the Ryzen 3600, given just how inexpensive it is still a good chip to buy, especially considering the price. Like if you could pick it up for like the 150, so that's a really good chip for that price. But if you're
Right.
building a new system and you're looking at, do I get the Intel chip for 200 or the AMD chip for 220? And it's like you get the AMD chip for 220. Like no question about it, which is crazy to think about because no one would have ever said buy AMD for gaming, even like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
it's a
it's being having done PC stuff for a long time. I'm even still seeing these benchmarks. I'm still wary,
right.
which tells you something.
I it's but like these are like the benchmarks from independent reviewers, which is what got like kind of, because you could always need to be concerned with what the manufacturer says. But the fact that a lot of third-party reviewers have like come with similar results, it's good, at least for now. But what's your main holdup or concern? Is it just like long term, or is it
It's just AMD. I've never had good experiences with AMD anything.
okay? Yeah, we're gonna definitely dive into that.
Like, yeah, just my history with AMD has been very, very poor. So,
Yeah, like and we'll go way deeper into this, but I ended up snagging a 5600X, so I'll have more to talk about that in a second. But I think it's just right now, other than yeah, it's fair to kind of have some concerns because AMD did have problems with some of the initial Ryzen series where they just like had issues with either BIOS or uh, any basically the drivers and other things. I think that's a fair concern. I think with Ryzen specifically, though, we're at the point now where if anything bad was going to happen, it's already like it's mature enough that I think it's less of a concern. But then again, they now have, I think, 20% market share. Like they don't have the room to mess up anymore when it comes to their
right,
CPUs. Like they can't. They're becoming the premium. So if it becomes a greater issue again, where it's like AMD has driver problems with their CPUs, then they can't be charging the premium rate. So hopefully they got that taken care of because that's to go into our next scene with the Radeon 6000 announcement. That would be my biggest issue. Because first off, I think it's great that the Radeon 6000 or the 6800, like they need to change their numbering method because like you can't have a 5000 series CPU and a 6000 series GPU and not confuse everybody. Especially since they're also like XT, which is something they've also used on the CPU side. It's confusing, but they are actually aiming to compete with Nvidia on the high end, which I don't think anyone expected. But to your point with the CPU about drivers, that's my big thing with the Radeon. It's like, yeah, they might be competitive and they have a huge advantage, and that getting a RTX card right now, 3000 card, is just bloody difficult. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want to jump on the Radeon series right now.
right.
I think if I was to say where I think they are with the Radeon series, if you look at what they did with Ryzen, I would say that they're in like the Ryzen 1, Ryzen 2 period where it's interesting to look at and it might be worth considering, but it isn't necessarily the part I would recommend unless you are actually interested in it, like in specifically it.
Right.
The advantage AMD has right now, though, is because RTX cards are so bloody difficult to get, if they actually have inventory, they might just win, quote, win this generation of GPUs, at least from the offset, because people are able to get cards in hand, which is something that NVIDIA has been struggling to do with the 3000 launch for months at this point.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm glad there's competition. And I want them to have success. I won't necessarily. I think this is a question of they might be setting themselves up to do, if they're trying to do Ryzen with Radeon. This is like, I'm going to be more interested in the next gen to see if they keep it up. But the other thing too is there's so much software and driver side support that NVIDIA has that AMD doesn't, or is saying that they're working on, or it's coming soon. They're still not there one-to-one with NVIDIA. But, I mean, they definitely, I think, are attacking NVIDIA's weak spot by just putting out cards with 16 gigs of memory. Like, that alone is going to get some people swayed without any regard to anything else, because
Sure.
it makes them think that they have something that's more future proof when it's maybe. But what was your take when you saw stuff come out on this?
Again, I just never really liked AMD stuff ever.
Yeah,
So for me, it comes down to a thing where I'm not ever looking in AMD's direction. Like it just always comes down to, oh, that's nice.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
then I just never, I'm like, cool, that's great. I don't care.
Yeah, I know
Or
on
like
the
I'm just never gonna do it. I'm just never gonna be interested.
yeah, I know on the Mac end, like you were anything Apple if it has a discrete GPU, um, until whatever happens with their announcement this Tuesday. Um, I always remember whenever I ran boot camp, immediately feeling like I was nerfed because I was using AMD. Like it just didn't ever seem to be as good as comparable cards from Nvidia,
Right.
which is never like a good feeling. But and also it doesn't help that I think sometimes Apple uses a customized GPU to the point where like their drivers, like AMD would have to write custom drivers. So there was also that issue with Boot Camp. But yeah, I'm interested in these from the competitive standpoint because competition in the GPU market is only going to be good for the consumer, but that doesn't change the fact that AMD has to prove that you can put the card in your machine and not have driver problems for a year. Which, if you look at their last generation Radeon, the 5000 series, that was an actual problem where people are still reporting driver problems with Radeon 5800s. And yeah, there's some really interesting things that they're doing where if you have like the Ryzen 5000 series CPU and a Radeon 6000 series GPU, you can get like these nifty cool features, which is them totally taking advantage of their position in the CPU market to try to help them in the GPU market. But I, as a consumer, was like, that's interesting. I'm not swayed that you're going to be good enough yet.
Correct.
And that's why I think right now it really comes down to the fact that the only reason I would like if they have all their driver issues fixed, I wouldn't be screaming get the AMD card. But it might just be one of those cases where everyone starts going get the card you can afford that is in stock, and that might not be Nvidia. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not holding my breath and I'm not betting on them. But who knows? They might if they pull off what they did with Ryzen with Radeon now, great because that means Nvidia has to not do because you could almost say Nvidia pulled an Intel with the Pascal or not Pascal the Turing class cards where they didn't really improve on Pascal. It was like an Intel like TikTok thing, and anything that's going to make them not do that, great. But
Yeah.
let's go on into our last tech topic, the one we will probably spend the most time on. Chris had some text messages last night, filling him in on my ordeal. So as I've discussed many times on the podcast, I don't know what James is doing.
Oh, I was like, we could just like bury you in all the boxes.
Oh, he's saying we could bury me in all the boxes. Like honestly, there are boxes behind me. Like
Oh, I love it.
like
I love
actually,
that feeling.
Ooh, here's a box.
Yeah.
Like I was out working. I enjoyed my last build, the Hackintosh. I was really looking forward to this build. But I think the best way to put it is I was kept running into problems and it ended with sparks. Like actual sparks. So
Yeah, so give me the story. Give me
all
the
right,
story.
so I think first off, I am probably one of very few people in the world right now who has both a Ryzen 5600 and an RTX 3070. Like, I have the stuff to make a pretty awesome system.
Yeah, what was
It's
the
gonna
pre-order
be
process here?
so, because I figured you want to talk about this. Pre-order, I was really smart with how I pre-ordered my 3070 because that was the first thing I was able to get. So I tried to get the Founders Edition. I knew that Best Buy was going to have problems, and it was hell. Am one of the many people, and I talked about this on Reddit, I think on r/build a PC, because someone asked, like, how did anyone get a 3070? I think I had a Founders Edition 3070 in my cart at least 5 times, but kept running into problems where either it kicked it out of my cart because I was too slow, or slow, in quotes, or
Right.
because what they were doing is they were putting inventory up in batches. And so if you weren't fast enough, it wouldn't process because all of that batch had been ordered. But then when I was actually towards the end, I was able to get it to my cart, but it kept telling me it couldn't ship to my address, which is evidently a problem multiple people had, where they were able to get the card into their cart, but Best Buy would be like, oh yeah, we can't ship there. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of Los Angeles. I don't believe you. But I had also wisely known that EVGA, after the 3080 debacle, had put in place basically an email queue where you could sign up for their notification email. But what they did, instead of notifying, hey, we have inventory in stock, they would take how much stock they have and then would email that number of people on the list, and they would hold that inventory for 5 hours. So from the moment you got your email, you would have 5 hours to complete your order. So while I'm dealing with Best Buy, I also did their notification thing. And I ended up getting my notification email at 4:45 that day. So I woke up at 6 to do the whole pre-order. And at 4:45 in the afternoon, I got the email from EVGA going, you can order now. So I actually ended up getting my 3070 by either that Friday or Saturday. So I had it in hand. I've had it in hand for over a week. That was probably like the most smoothest part of the 3070 pre-order thing, was just doing that with EVGA. And it seems like a lot of people, when talking about it, who were having success were people like me who had done the EVGA notification. So yay. And I think kudos to EVGA for putting that in place, because that,
Again, best customer service,
Yeah.
and best manufacturer.
yeah. So it was one of those cases where it just made it, like, I knew I was either going to get the NVIDIA Founders or an EVGA card, so I also wasn't trying to get everything, which I think meant I was better off because I was doing a targeted hit rather than a spray and pray and hope I can buy something. Because I was either going to get the Founders Edition from Best Buy because that's the only place you could, or I was going to get it through EVGA, so it ended up working out for me. The Ryzen wasn't as problematic. The problem Ryzen had with its release is everyone knew it was supposed to go live at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. But unlike the GPUs, where they were like very good about putting it live right at that time, I think Newegg didn't have it up for 5 or 6 minutes. So I didn't see him until like 6:06. I was able to place my order around like 6:10 a.m. and then within 5 minutes it had sold out. So I snagged them. I got lucky. But that also meant I have the stuff to build a pretty, yes, there are better systems out there, but this is going to be a monster, and there would be very few able to compete with it when it's done. Big point on the when it's done.
When it's done.
Because I started working on putting it together around, I want to say like 5 o'clock-ish yesterday evening. I figured I'd be like, you know what? I can take my time. I'll probably like have everything up and running, everything downloaded, all the stuff set up. It'll be like 9ish, and I'll be like ready to go. Can like start doing some benchmarks, and then Chris and I could talk about tomorrow about how awesome this thing is doing in benchmarks and whatever. So the first thing I had done is, because you needed to do a BIOS update to the motherboard in order to run the Ryzen 5000 series, I did that. Or I thought I did that. I later learned two things. The first one ended up maybe or maybe not actually it put me in the right direction to actually get it to work. But I think it wasn't actually the problem, in that evidently sometimes MSI boards have issues with flash drives over 8 gigabytes. And I believe mine was a 16.
Oof.
And so I switched over to, James had one that was literally like an old drive that was 1 gigabyte. So I was able to switch it. But I think what the real problem was is the other drive I was using, since it had been used when I built the Hackintosh, it was actually partitioned with an EMI boot. And I think that was what ultimately threw me off. And I didn't realize when I started, after I'd done that, because I was talking to my parents and my sister at the time, the BIOS update didn't take. So I had started building and putting stuff on, not realizing that the BIOS just wasn't going to work.
Right.
So there's my first problem, is my BIOS is incorrect, and I don't know it. My second problem is I get everything plugged in to the board, get ready to do like my posts to make sure I got everything up and running. Nothing spins up. And I'm just like, oh God, what happened? Like,
Right.
the fan's not spinning. I'm not getting any output on the display. Just like nothing is working.
Right.
Start to dig into it, find out about the BIOS problem, switch out to the other drive, and it still is giving me the same, where I plug it in, I hit the flash, because you can hit a button and it will flash the BIOS,
Sure.
and it just gives me a solid red light when it's supposed to be blinking. And I'm just like, I have no clue what's going on. Like, the information online from MSI, if you are listening, and I know you're not, but if you are, holy crap, give us more information, because I still don't know what exactly that indicated, other than it's not working. So I was sat there and was trying to flash it, and it just, like, I did not know what was going on. So I started getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to just start taking stuff off. And while I'm on my iPad trying to look up the problem, I try to flash it again. I turn on power. All of a sudden I hear like this weird staticky pop. It like honestly sounded like a radio burst. Like, it sounded to me like someone had turned on the radio, got like a really loud like thing of talking, and then it shut off. I had no clue what it was, because I wasn't actually actively like looking. All I know is I'm like, pop, my board is like, nothing's on, like everything's out. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. Could be my motherboard, could be my power supply. I legit have no idea. So I swapped out the power supply. I used the power supply from the Hackintosh. I ended up having to go through, clear the CMOS by removing the battery. I removed everything, the GPU, the CPU, everything. And that finally let me flash the BIOS. Hooray! Plug everything back in. I kept the old power supply from the Hackintosh. Post. Hooray. And I even left out my other problem, where the CPU cooler I bought, because of however they put it together, it comes with Intel brackets pre-installed, so that way you could just stick it on the Intel board, but you have to remove it for an AMD board. One of the screws was in so tight, I wasn't able to get it out, and ended up stripping the screw. So I was already kind of just like irritated and frazzled, because I just kept having these like problems. And a lot of them user error. But I was also really glad that I was like, this time I'm going to be smart. And unlike last time where I built the system within the case, this time I actually was like benching it on the cardboard from the motherboard because I'm like, you know what, I just want to be safe because I knew about the BIOS update. I knew about all that other stuff. I'm like, I need to just make sure that I could quickly swap stuff out, take them in and out without having to actually like deal with the case. Which, yay me for doing it right. So I got that all set up. Finally resolved other problems. Like there were like little bits of human error that honestly probably happened because I was just frazzled by other things. But I got it to boot or to post anyway. So I knew my board was working, everything was working, but I still had this power supply that I wasn't sure about because my problem is when you look at the power needs of a 3070, my old power supply could run it, but not very well. They recommend a 650 power supply. You could get away with probably like a 600 or a 550 and still be safe, but I have a 450. I could run it and probably like install Windows, get drivers done, but like there was no way I could comfortably like benchmark it or game on it without like potentially like drawing too much power from this or trying to draw too much power than more power than my supply could provide. So I was like, I still, because I'd had all those other problems, I'm like, I don't know if my power supply was the issue or my board was the issue when that little pop happened. Like, still can't comfortably say my power supply has problems. So I had already unplugged so much stuff from the Hackintosh. I was like, you know what? That's my old build. I'm going to risk my old build where if anything goes wrong, I'm not necessarily going to be like, oh God, I'm not going to care as much. Plugged that thing in. I basically moved everything away, plugged it into the Hackintosh. I blew the apartment fuse. Sparks emitted from the power supply. I was like, holy like you get that weird adrenaline hit because of how the wiring is in our apartment. James is trying to watch Mandalorian in his room and has already had to apparently pause it multiple times because I kept having issues and went, hey, James, do you have this thing? And it killed his watching of the Mandalorian because the power went out in his room because, of course, the kitchen and the dining room and his room are on one circuit. Who knows why? And I haven't even installed Windows. Like, I just didn't even get to that point last night. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I'm just like, I don't have the energy to keep going. I don't know what to, like, I could have kept going. I could have, like, installed with what I had on hand, but I'm like, last night, because I bought the cooler from Amazon, I've already processed their return. They're sending me a new one. EVGA, I called EVGA last night, left a message. They have issued me a support number so I can RMA, because they're the ones who made the power supply. And so I called it like 10 o'clock at night. Of course, no one answers at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night. I, however, had a voicemail at like 6:30 in the morning giving me the information I needed. So I need to process the RMA. So I should have a new power supply hopefully like Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. And I'm just like, you know what? I can't complete this build right now because all of the other parts to replace the stuff that need to be replaced, I'm going to get in a couple days. I don't want to install it in the case and then take it out again to reinstall the new stuff to install it back in the case. So I have this amazing RTX 3070 and an amazing Ryzen 5600X, and I can't do jack shit.
Fair.
Oh, it's...
You could probably get a power supply at Fry's.
It's painful.
Did you hear James?
No, what do you say?
Well, you could probably get a power supply at Fry's.
Lol.
Oh, God. It was one of those cases where, like, in the moment, I was, like, stressed and on edge.
Oh, I bet.
But I texted you last night. I'm like, this is, like, horrible to be dealing with, but this is going to be amazing to talk about on the show. Because it is kind of funny. At least I see it, like, because if everything had gone smoothly, I would have this, like, amazing system that I could brag about. Be like, haha, look at me. And instead, I'm just like, well, it's kind of together.
It kind of works.
It kind of works. it posts. I could legit install Windows, but oh
Yeah,
well.
there's no point in risking it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like you said, there's no point in risking it. I'll wait till I get a new power supply, and get everything. So that way, instead of like having to install and uninstall and then reinstall everything, because like you can install the CPU cooler when it's in the case, but it's just like not the easiest thing to do. And I'm just like, you know what? I could just do all of that once I have the power supply. But
Right.
oh well. Like once it's up and running, I'll have to post pictures on Twitter or something. But this thing is going to scream because not only do I have like I think I talked about how I was straddling in the past. I was straddling the line between like stupid and not stupid with some of the stuff I was buying. I may have tipped my toe over that line, buying stuff that I knew I was going to buy down the road, but buying it now instead of waiting because like prices on storage are dropping for solid state drives.
Yeah.
So I bought more solid state storage than I would have needed. This thing, not only do I have the 5600X and the 3070, I'm going to have an NVMe terabyte of storage. I'm going to have, with just standard SATA SSDs, an additional 2 terabytes that I'm going to RAID. So I'm going to have 3 terabytes of solid state storage. And because memory prices are also dropping, I ran into an issue in the past playing City Skylines, which, by the way, if you don't realize it, that game will push your system.
Yeah.
Both CPU and GPU.
Ridiculous.
And memory. I kept running into issues where I had 16 gigs in the Hackintosh, and it would use all 16 gigs of memory. I was able to get 32 gigs of memory for $90. My machine is going to be a beast when it's running. I can't wait till it's running. But right now, I literally put the motherboard with the CPU on it and everything. I put it back in its little static, clean packaging and put it back in the box just to be safe. And I'm just like, that's literally where I'm at, is everything is either back in its box or is already on the board and stored away. But I had a day.
Yeah, that's
I had a day.
that's intense.
But honestly, as stressful as it was, it's like this is all part of it.
Yeah, it
Like,
really is.
And if this happened when I built the Hackintosh, I think it would have been way more like terrifying compared to now, because now I have a better understanding of what I'm doing and was able to troubleshoot. So, hey, experience. And I'm still going to have a pretty damn awesome system.
Yeah, you should be very proud of what you're about to build.
Yeah, so all this means is instead of playing games today, I'm going to stare longingly at an empty case, and I'll be playing games next week. That's it. That's really it. This just delayed it a couple days. But
Totally fair.
yeah, I think the big takeaway here, especially because we talked about EVGA, we got 2 points of where we should just give props to EVGA, both in how they're handling the ordering of the 3000 series RTX cards, and the fact that I had a very fast response given how late I called and how early they responded. Like, seriously, still being taken care of, but like, honestly, like, good guy EVGA. Like, the delay right now, the fact that it's only going to be a couple days, but I'll still be able to get everything sorted out, like, that's good customer service. So, good guy
Again,
EVGA.
I wasn't, like, we weren't full of shit when I was talking about EVGA. Like, they are amazing customer service. I've never had any kind of issue with them customer service wise. And
So,
it's awesome.
yeah, but of course, we'll have to talk about this again next show. We'll go more in depth because I do want to benchmark this thing just because I kind of want to see, like, head to head what the Hackintosh is versus it, assuming the Hackintosh didn't get destroyed.
checked yet?
I haven't checked yet. No. Like last night, I could have plugged in that power supply, got everything wired up, and checked it. I just literally couldn't like get the give a shit enough to do it because I just did not want to do any more testing. Like I legit had a power supply spark on me. I was kind of troubleshooted out. So no, I haven't tested the Hackintosh to make sure it's still working. But I'm interested to see what this thing does when I can put it through its paces. But yeah, that was my ordeal yesterday. But hey, it's a fun project when you could still laugh about it fairly quickly after the whole stressful period of it.
Right.
But yeah. But
I'm just excited to see what this thing can do once you get it running.
Oh man, I legit can't wait to put this I legit can't wait to put this thing through its paces. And I'm unlike last time, this time I want to play around with overclocking, which I've never really done before. So there's a lot for me to be excited about with this new system beyond just gaming. Just from like a technical like geeking out about hardware aspect is I'm diving in a little deeper in a way I didn't feel comfortable doing it with the Hackintosh because I think I've talked about this before. One of the things with the Hackintosh is I knew I'd been wanting to build my own system for a while, but I was not in like the world's greatest financial situation when the iMac it replaced died. So I had made a lot of sacrifices to both make it A, hit my budget, and B, work as a Hackintosh. I do now know, because I was following like Tony Mac x86, I now know that's not actually the best resource for building a Hackintosh. So I may have nerfed myself in some ways buying equipment that was not as good as I could have bought or could have bought equipment I wanted to get. So for me, a lot of it that makes me excited about this computer too is I didn't have to make any of those sacrifices this time, where any decision making I made about budget was more my, like, I could not sit here and rationalize spending the money on a 3080. Like the extra couple $100 to me just does not make sense. But I'm comfortable buying the 3070. So that was
I had the same thing. Like there's just not, like, your system is already going to laugh at most games for the next 5-6 years of like, you want me to run this? Okay, I guess.
Any more I did to this would have been overkill and ridiculously expensive for insignificant gain. Like, to go back to, like, we talked a bit about the Ryzen 5000 series stuff. The 5600 is competitive with, like, the higher end, like, i7, i9 Intel. Like, this thing is going to scream, yeah, I could have bought a more expensive Ryzen chip, but it wasn't like I would be getting like a percentage performance that would be like maybe like 10%, but I'd be spending hundreds of dollars more to get it. And it's the same with like going from the 3070 to 3080. Like, for what I have and what I spent, like, I have a very solid machine, and anything more would be overkill and not worth it. Excuse me. But yeah, it's like, I'm excited. Like, we'll have to, I can't wait to run it through like Geekbench and like Heaven and all of the benchmarks, just because like it's crazy how powerful these systems are. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm still excited.
Absolutely.
A little frazzled. But excited. Let's move on to your bit of excitement in gaming.
Yeah. Oh, before we get to that, I did post the Rotten Tomatoes thing for Queen's Gambit.
So that got posted in Discord, which I need to finish up because I think we should just make that a public Discord sometime soon. So keep your eyes peeled to that, folks.
I put it in chat.
But James did put it in chat. So if you are on Twitch, the link should already be in chat for Queen's Gambit to the Rotten Tomatoes score. So,
and it's insane.
I'll have to check that out. I've been actually looking for something new to watch. So,
Yeah, so it has a 100% critic score and a 97% like audience score.
Mm.
Um, it is really, really good. Uh, and we could probably talk about it here once you're
Yeah, once
through
I
with it.
get through it, we can. How about that?
It's
I
7
will.
episodes, so it's pretty quick. But
That's my homework. I will watch it before the next podcast, and we will talk about it in the next one.
yeah, it is
Um,
a ride.
awesome. But I know you're a huge Mass Effect fan, and you had a lot of happy news.
Yeah, so yesterday was N7 day. Was it yesterday? Yeah. So yesterday was
Yes.
N7 day, which is it would take me a while to understand to explain why N7.
Oh,
But
I'll know sometime in the future. We've
right.
talked
So
about this.
N7 real quick. So N7 is like sort of the military distinction or like they're like the Navy SEALs of whatever, or Navy SEALs and the Green Berets and whatever. So N7 is that designation for the military, the human military service that's in Mass Effect. So Shepard, the main character, is an N7 uh, recruit soldier person. He's a veteran N7 person, so he has that on all of his gear, and a lot of the weapons hold that N7 naming nomenclature. So it's just become like a thing on the Mass Effect universe of like having that insignia everywhere. So the BioWare made N7 or like November 7th.
November. So yeah, it's like May the
Yeah,
4th.
Mass
It makes
Effect.
sense.
Yeah,
Like it just ties in very nice and neat with it.
right. So they made it the kind of normal fan day thing. So yesterday they've been teasing it for a while of having they're like, hey, cool, the original voice cast is doing a panel tomorrow afternoon. You might want to check it out. And everyone's like, oh, what are they doing? It's like they're finally gonna announce the remaster, duh. And then so they did. So that was cool. We got a very cool CG trailer showing everything in a nice blog post saying that like, it's a typical thing of all hey, the gameplay is gonna be this the same in the core of it. We're just cleaning it up, textures, we're like redoing textures and all that stuff, blah blah blah. So it's all the standard stuff. Like I think we talked about earlier that like this remaster was the worst kept secret of
Yeah.
all time. Everyone knew this was happening. This was news for a long time. But the news that we got that was sort of a throw-in, uh, and I think it was throwing people a bone because everyone knew they knew that the remaster wasn't a big deal. Um, like the official word of the remaster wasn't a big deal. I think you understood that. So in the blog post, they said they're also working on the next Mass Effect.
I guess
So
which I saw, which is cool. Is this going to be continuing Andromeda, or is this going to
I
be
don't
new?
know. I would assume new because Andromeda was not well received. Uh, which, well, I think if that game came out in the state it is now, I think it would have been way better received. I think a lot of the problem was that it came out so
It was
unfinished
buggy on
and
launch.
bad,
Yeah, it's
and technically that I don't even think it was that bad. I think there's a great video on YouTube of why Mass Effect Andromeda had the issues it had. It comes down to the size and scope of the game and some kind of probably bug within their conversation system that caused a lot of the bugs.
oh, so like
Um,
one bug just wreaked havoc and it hadn't been caught,
well,
or
basically what it is like so when you think about something like The Witcher, right?
Mhm.
It's all hand animated, which is extremely time consuming and takes so long. And Witcher's a huge game, but Mass Effect is even bigger.
Yeah.
So the problem that they had with BioWare was BioWare has a conversation system where they're pre-canned animations where you set eyes and mouth and mouth flaps and eye movements and like facial expression, and then you write the dialogue. And it's like cool. Use eye roll C with mouth flap B and smile S, like whatever, right? And then it runs through its in the coding. So it's not hand animated. They're pre-canned, but you can kind of mix and match. So the thing that someone was saying and the video kind of points out is like what it looks like is if that system somehow had a bug in it, so everything was kind of misaligned. That's how the game
Mm.
turned out at the end of it. So every conversation, like it just didn't. Everything looked kind of off, and it's like people are looking in the wrong direction, or like the smile's wrong, or something, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And so it breaks the game, it breaks the immersion, it breaks everything. And so now it's fixed. Now it's great, and the story is great, and I actually do really enjoy that game. I think again, people just were so hyped for it, got really disappointed, and then dropped it forever.
Yeah, I think this is kind of as a side tangent. I think a lot of that drop it forever thing is coming from the fact that I think that there's two things playing into it. I think as just in general, there's so many things that we can give our attention to that a bad first impression, like that happened to Battlefront 2 is also, where a bad first impression could just tank a game because I don't have to spend my time playing this. I can always play something else. There's always an alternative out there that it doesn't have those problems. And then also on the flip side, I think this is something I would also say is a problem that exists in film. It is you are so focused on the release date that quality suffers because you have to hit the release date. And to that point, this is where I think like Cyberpunk got delayed again. Very few companies would be willing or able to do that.
Right. And again, I think it comes down to one, CD Projekt Red is independent.
Mm-hmm.
They have no master to obey
Yeah,
and heed to.
they're not at
And
the
then,
beck and call of a bunch of Wall Street shareholders.
right. And I think there's a level of quality that people expect and that people are willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on to get.
Yeah,
I think the only other company that can get away with this is Rockstar.
yes. And what's crazy
Um,
is Rockstar can get away with it, even though they are owned by a company that is beholden to shareholders. But a lot of that is, I think Rockstar is very. I get the sense Rockstar doesn't announce the game they're working on until they're at the point where they're just refining rather than building.
right.
Um,
So yeah, I'm excited.
yeah,
Obviously, we're going to play it,
we are going
and
to play it.
we're going to have fun times.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to figure that one out because our whole production plan around that one was pre-COVID. So, TBD, coming soon, eventually, Mass Effect. But no, it's like you said, it was one of the worst kept secrets. But I'm sure I saw that they've finally made it official, and I was almost tweeted at you. Well, I guess I know where Chris is disappearing for a month. Yeah, so yeah, I am actually a fan of the remastering old games. I actually do think it's worthwhile because
Yeah,
not
so do I.
I get some people don't like the idea of the graphics getting updated, like it somehow is like ruins the spirit of the game. I've seen some people make that argument. My argument to counter that is I don't really care as much that they upgraded the graphics, but typically when they do a remaster, that means that any legacy code that might not work in the future is getting fixed. So
Correct.
it's adding lifespan to a game rather than. And who hasn't like downloaded like okay, many, but there's a reason why there's mods for like texture packs for games. This is really no different. It's just official.
Right. And I like from what I'm hearing, the Mass Effect team is doing some crazy stuff with improvements and gameplay improvements
Do you
and
know if
keeping
they're
things in
gonna
line.
unify the control scheme?
That's the big rumor. That apparently that's what's taking so long is getting Mass Effect 1 up it's up to code.
Yeah, because I know that's the thing you and I have talked about. How it was like I tried playing Mass Effect soon after it came out, and just like the control thing, just I could not.
Yeah, Mass Effect 1 is tough to power through.
So
It's yeah, Mass Effect 1 is one of the more difficult games to get through. But I again, I think so. There's things like I think Mass Effect 1 has one of the deeper systems in terms of RPG mechanics and like system mechanics. But I also do understand that it does also have one of the most uh, obtuse control systems you could possibly ever have.
Yeah,
So totally get that.
but if that's gone with remaster, be
Yeah.
I might, even though we're gonna do our whole thing, and I would probably hold off playing it myself because I know how much you want to run me through that. But
Oh,
that could
dude,
be
if
a
you want
thing.
to go for it, you can go for it because the game is incredible.
Uh,
I'd be if you wanted to do like a weekly check-in. The only thing that I would be concerned about is you not seeing everything. But again, that's like part of the fun is your experience of it.
yeah. No, I just honestly a lot of it is I liked what because to kind of give, and I think we talked about this before, so this isn't really spoiling what our plan is and might continue to be. It was you would be playing the game, but I would be making the decisions.
Right.
And I really like the idea of you and I both just like sitting on the couch playing the game. Like it just was like, you
Yeah.
know what, that just sounded really fun to me. So a lot of it is I want to have my first experience in the game being that thing because that just seemed like because first off, you it's kind of like the red wedding thing, not to that extreme, I bet, but where having read the book series A Song of Ice and Fire, watching people who had never read the books watch a Game of Thrones with the Red Wedding. There was something really cool about that, and I just like I'd love to experience that game where you're like, oh man, I can't wait till Logan gets to this point. Like I think there's something of value there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And there's
yeah,
definitely moments like that in the game. There's definitely moments where you go, oh, "Holy shit, that just happened."
so
Um,
I'm very interested in playing the game, but I want to hold myself to that because I think it's worth it. And I think it might be more engaging for a potential viewer, honestly, is to have me have no idea what's going on.
right.
So coming soon to a YouTube near you. Let's move on because
Yeah,
we
go
haven't
for
even hit Star Wars yet, and we've been talking for an hour.
it.
Have you watched the trailer for the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special?
I have
I
I'm actually pretty excited.
I am so excited. This looks so absurd and so silly, and it's exactly what I would want it to be. Like it's just I
Yeah, it's real funny.
legitimately laughed out loud multiple times watching the trailer, and then laughed again when I rewatched it. Have you watched any of the like shorts they put out to tease it on Star Wars Kids?
No.
They're not as strong as the trailer. There's some fun ones. Like there's one with Baby Yoda and a snowball.
Okay.
And then there's like another
Did he eat
one.
it?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised. But then there was another one that I liked where it basically was an X-wing and one of the Sith TIE fighters were in like a Christmas lights, you know, essentially. I guess the closest is going to be like a Christmas light dance off,
Right.
and it was just absolutely silly. And I can't wait. That's out. I think it's the 17th, so not this week, but the week after. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a blast. So like, because we already talked about it, but I watched the trailer. I'm like, I want to talk about it again because it just like Vader's line about my son. I mean, these two sons on this binary sons, and it just was like I was just laughing so hard because just I don't know. It just seems very delightful. So Lego Star Wars Holiday Special coming soon. But let's dive into the meat and potatoes of Star Wars right now. Chapters 9 and 10 of The Mandalorian. So
Yes.
I
I love them
go.
all. I love them both.
Yeah, I
Um,
really enjoyed them both. Like one of the things I found interesting watching 9 is I considered Gunslinger, which is chapter 5. That's the one that where Mando ends up in Tatooine the first time.
sure,
Um, I considered it kind of like a not necessarily filler, but like more like a bottle episode. It was like clearly setting some stuff up for the future, but didn't really feel like you could have removed that episode and like the rest of the season would have been like nothing would have really changed.
sure.
Um, but chapter 9 would not have been possible without that episode, which I found kind of ties into the whole thing with Rebels, where season 1 it feels like there's like a lot of episodes that you're like, oh, I can skip this, oh, I can skip that. But then when you go back and actually look at the arcs of the series, you realize how much of it was established in those first 10 episodes.
Right. It's the
To
same
it,
way how I felt about Agents of Shield too.
yeah,
That first season of Agents of Shield, you're like, man, this is very Monster of the Week. And then all of a sudden, later in seasons, they start building in like all that Monster of the Week stuff into actual like important story stuff,
right.
and you're like, oh, this matters.
Admittedly, I don't think I'm still like think I last I watched Agents of Shield was like season 2. But I remember the moment the flip went with Hail Hydra, like
Yeah.
everything that had been Monster of the Week, you realize, oh, none of that would have, all of that was necessary to establish this flip.
Mm-hmm. It's so
Um,
good.
so however, even as just like a standalone, if Chapter 9 was just like a standalone story set in the Star Wars universe, I think it would work.
Yeah.
It was really like fun to watch. I agree with some people I saw online saying it was a little longer than it needed to be. Like there were some areas where they could have like trimmed it down, but I don't consider that heavy enough of weight to give it a negative mark.
Right.
Like
I think
my
overall the story was really good. I think the beats of it were a little like I think the beats of it were right. I just think
yeah,
like there was a lot of stuff that they moved a little quicker on. But I mean
yeah,
overall that it's a great episode.
yeah, it's a
Um
really I first off, I there's a part of me that kind of wonders how much of it was supposed to be kind of a like a subtle like joking like not serious but joking finger towards Dune because Dune was supposed to come out in a couple months and Mandalorian does like the sandworms.
yeah. Oh, I tweeted out a SpongeBob meme because it reminded me the whole time I was watching it, I was like, this is a fucking SpongeBob episode. Like they had this
uh,
exact situation on SpongeBob.
God, it was very like you could tell. I think, especially with these two episodes, I think they really are pushing even more what the volume is capable of.
Right.
Like they are finding what the limit is, and they are aiming towards that like every single episode now.
Yeah. The episode 10 to me was like incredible what they were able to do.
Yeah, it's I think stick with 9 initially. Like I love that story. I love the callback to Aftermath
Right.
because if you did not know this, Cobb
He's in
Vance
there.
was originally like was introduced in the Aftermath trilogy.
That he has the that he has the Boba
Yeah,
armor.
it's like it's a nice callback to where people like you and me immediately knew who it was when someone said, "Oh, there's a Mando on Tatooine." It was just like, "Oh, it's got to be that guy,"
Yeah.
but he's not a Mando, and he wasn't. But it just was. It was such a just like I liked how they played the idea of like working together with the Tusken Raiders, giving us more with the Tusken Raiders beyond just the Sand People attacked and raided. Like it is adding some depth to a smaller part of the Star Wars universe that I really appreciate. And it had like the whole thing with the crit dragon was just cool. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much in chapter 9 that I thought made it like just
So
enjoyable.
so chapter 9, the funny part when they do that, when they're walking the one bantha that has all the bombs.
Yeah.
I think I was watching with my dad, and I was like, why is all the bombs on the one bantha? I was like, that seems inefficient. I was like, I guarantee you that they're just gonna have the crate worm eat this bantha with all the bombs on it. And then when they didn't do it, I was like,
that's
oh,
a
I
plan
guess
A,
not.
man.
Was that
That
James?
should have been plan A. That was so much more.
James is arguing that should have been plan A. They should have
Yeah, I was
actually.
Well, like when they started to like execute the plan, like dig holes and stuff like that, I was like, oh, well, this seems a lot more difficult. Whatever. And then and then like when Mando takes the one bantha and it has all the bombs on, I was like, oh, now he's gonna do it. I
Yeah, it's
was
like,
like, here we
okay.
go.
God, that was such a cool moment too. When he takes
Yeah,
it, just
I agree with James that that's the way easier and better plan.
yeah, that should not have been Plan C. Like they were
That
literally,
it should not have been Mando improvises.
yeah, like that should have been Plan A. But no, that was like I loved that episode. Episode 10. I think
This is one of my favorite episodes of the entire run so far.
I think I loved the X-wing chase.
I love the beginning of that where he goes, hey, can you turn to channel 2?
I know, like I'm just like, oh man, that just I
And then
got
the
like
wings open up.
yeah, I know. I'm just like, oh, it's gonna go down. And of course, it's everyone's favorite X-wing pilot,
Trapper Wolf.
Trapper Wolf.
Yeah,
I wonder if Jon Favreau's plan now is to try to get Dave Filoni in an X-wing as many times as possible, just to mess with Dave.
It is.
Just to mess with Dave.
Has to be.
It's just like,
Dude,
the fans love it. The fans will know it. The fans will appreciate it. You can't say no to them. And Dave is just like, son of a bitch.
I want a Trapper Wolf action figure.
Yes, I want Trapper Wolf action figures. Yes, that needs to happen. Where's our Black Series Trapper Wolf? Where's our Trapper Wolf Funko Pop? Like, come on. Like, we need Trapper Wolf
I would buy
merch.
the hell out of a Trapper Wolf Funko Pop.
I don't buy Funko Pop. I would probably buy that Funko Pop just so I could say I have it. But yeah, I love that whole chase. I hate spiders with a passion. Like, legit.
Also, this episode triggered you.
This episode freaking triggered me. Oh man, I was just like on edge.
Well, it's so funny because these things show up in Rebels.
Yeah,
they're not terrifying.
And like in Rebels, I agree with Zeb. Anything more than 2 legs is excessive. So,
But like in Rebels, they're not scary. Here, they're terrifying.
They're terrifying. But the thing is, in Rebels, they never got that big.
Yeah.
Like, that giant one was huge. But part of me, but this made me to go into like a lore tie-in. Because those like monsters essentially were found on Adelon.
Mm-hmm.
Is this Adelon? Which I doubt. Because he's flying from Tatooine, and we know Tatooine is not remotely close.
I mean, it's just the next system over, so it can't be.
Yeah. But is this a Force thing? Like, I now am wondering that. Is it because, the Bendu had been on the other planet? Are they tied into that in any way? I'm like, there could be Force stuff going on here. Sure. So yeah, the spiders freaked me out. Oh God. Normally
there's a couple parts of this episode that. So one, I love the frog lady when she says "fuck it" and she just starts jumping.
Yes, I love that bit.
Okay, I love that. The Baby Yoda eating the
Baby
eggs
Yoda and the eggs is just like is
and
hilarious.
Mando asking how many did you eat? Also, dude, this mother is a terrible mother.
Yeah,
How many? She doesn't notice that like there's now 6 or 7 eggs missing.
but the thing, I like the first time Baby Yoda sees them, it's just like it's more like I saw it as like you know how like a kid is oftentimes like it like sees like when they're like 3 and they see a baby, they're just like I was like, is that what's happening here? No, it's food.
Yeah,
It's
it's
food.
pretty funny. What else? When they're starting to take off the first time and the gigantic spider drops down,
Yeah,
freaked me out.
that really freaked me out too.
When they're trying to seal off the cockpit and the and all the spiders are trying to like climb like they're World War Z in it
Yeah,
up the wall, and he's just trying to flamethrower him, get him out of there. Um, Also when the X-wing pilots show up and he opens the door and it's just covered in web,
yeah. Like it, there
all
was
that stuff.
so much in there that was really good.
Shout out to Peyton
And
Reed,
so
man. I
as much
didn't
as
expect this from Peyton Reed.
well, the thing is my whole thing was I'm like, of course, Peyton Reed, ugh, because he's Ant-Man, and I'm like,
Right.
of course, the guy who directs
But
Ant-Man has
I
spiders.
didn't expect this
No, I did
style
not
of
at all.
directing from him at all. Because historically he's been very much like a I don't want this is going to come across as negative, and I don't want it to, but he's like the point and shoot guy. I
Yeah,
feel like he's
it's
historically been the point and shoot guy.
yeah, and this one was like a very, I think, well executed bit of
Very
horror
stylized.
that fit into the Star Wars. It was really well done, like all
100%.
around. Um, and it just was. I remember watching it and just I like how it's setting up this idea where like part of this like I saw people try to argue that this was another bottle episode
No.
type thing, but it tied into like the previous season, like in a way that did not feel, you know,
And
forced.
like to me, bottle episode means that it has no bearing on the rest of on any other episode.
But this one, yeah,
So,
this one, he's
right,
set
they're
up. He's hurt. He's not going to be in a great position like the rest of the
no,
season.
but he still has this woman with him. Like
Hmm.
she's not gone, so she still continues to another episode, and the Razor Crest is fucked.
Yeah, Razor Crest is pretty fucked up. She's going to be in the next episode. There's a part of me that I could see it going two ways. Either she's going to be resolved in the next episode, or this is like the quest of this season.
Right.
Um,
I could see both.
so yeah, I could see it going either way, and we won't know until Thursday midnight or Friday, depending on when we watch it.
Right.
Um,
But yeah, I love this last one. Episode 10 is fantastic.
yeah, it's. I remember being surprised that Mandalorian got an Emmy nom for best series for first season. Not because I thought it was like it's not bad. It's a great series. I was just kind of surprised.
Right.
But I wonder now with like season 2 we're only 2 episodes in. I'm just like I wonder if this is going to be like Game of Thrones where it keeps getting this nom, but eventually it hits the point where everyone realizes actually no, this is the best series. Then of course I don't want it to end like Game of Thrones, but like they
Um,
yeah,
it's really good, and
it's really
I
good.
will say the music too. They're getting to the point where they're starting to let more traditional Star Wars themes in here,
Yeah.
which the mix of the two is really good. Like when X-wing pilots show up, it plays the Rise of Resistance theme.
Yeah, it's so good because it's both like the from a music to show, like every aspect of this series is both building upon what exists, expanding it out, so things that happen in the future can also now draw from Mandalorian and add like another layer of separation to where it still feels like Star Wars, but it doesn't necessarily have to like sound like John Williams.
Right. I do love the idea too that the X-wing pilots are just kind of riding around like space cops.
Yeah, which
Because
honestly,
why wouldn't they?
why wouldn't they? And also knowing from the books about how things are handled by the New Republic, there's no way in hell they would have like if this was Imperial period, that would have been a Star Destroyer.
Right.
But New Republic just doesn't operate that way.
Right.
Which is why to kind of go deeper into Star Wars lore, it's one of the reasons why the New Republic was kind of, had no teeth and was fairly easy to be taken out by the First Order. Like it's something I just kind of go on a tangent. Something I don't think the sequel series really did a great job setting up, but the expanded material has really done a good job making clear how
they're too nice.
Yeah, the New Republic. It's a Claudia Gray wrote this in the Princess Leia book.
Right.
Like don't let if you let what you oppose define you, you're still being like if you choose to be the opposite of what you oppose, you're still letting what you oppose define you. So
right.
Yeah, and that's the New Republic in a nutshell.
Right. I love the that they're really showing that there's like things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
And like they've shown the hints of it before, but like this is like a really big example where he's like, "Oh, I don't have to have a transponder on. Like I don't have to transmit a signal. I have like this old tech, whatever." And he's like, "They're like, well, new management. Like, yeah, you do now." Like I love that kind of dynamic. I love that Mando has to say, "May the Force be with you," in order to not raise suspicion.
Yeah, may the Force be with you. And at the same time, I'm like, I love how he says that line, but he never like puts that together with the Baby Yoda.
Well, remember, like he doesn't have any context of like what that is, right?
He has no concept of what it is, which I think just makes that use of "May the Force be with you" kind of just like subtly hilarious.
Well, yeah, because he just doesn't know. Like he has no idea. He's like, he just knows like
they say
he's like
this.
He's like Republic soldiers say this. Like I should say this, and then like I was like, don't. He's like, they'll like me if I say this.
Yeah.
They'll know I'm good if I say this.
Yeah. Only the good guys say this, so may the Force be with you. Oh man. And then the X-Wings are like, wait a minute. Can you switch to channel 2? Yeah, no, it just lots of good moments in these 2 episodes. So
yeah,
I'm again loving it. So keep it up. I don't really have anything more, and it sounds like it's lunchtime for you.
It is. But I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited for those gonna go.
Yeah, let's wrap this up, shall we? Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things that you're supposed to do on the socials and the non-socials, and just tell all your friends. You know what? Just send a mass text message to all your friends going, hey, there's this show that I watch and you should watch it too. Maybe one of them won't unfriend you and actually watch it. So, hey, maybe try that. Don't try that. But other than that, please stay safe, wear a mask, and we will see you all in 2 weeks.